Hi there. Let's talk about business ideas in the farming space. Whether you have a piece of land in which you can farm, or even whether you don't have a piece of land, still there are some business ideas which you can implement in farming, as you're gonna see in this video. So watch the entire of this video for you to learn about these 5 awesome business ideas which you can look to jump into and make money this year and beyond. And by the way, guys, when we talk about farming, it's part of the bigger agriculture space. Agriculture is very massive in Kenya. That's so because agriculture accounts for over 20% of the country's gross domestic product, GDP. And in fact, the agriculture space employs over 40% of Kenyans in total. And going to the rural area specifically, agriculture employs over 70% of the rural population. That's the extent at which agriculture is in our country, and it plays a very huge part in the growth of our economy. That's why, in case you jump into farming, this is a lucrative area for you to be able to make money. You are all much welcomed to the Money Daily YouTube channel. My name is Arphaxade Sifuna. And by the way, if you're new here, kindly consider subscribing. Subscribe to the channel for you to be getting such awesome videos regularly. Thanks for subscribing. So, the very first idea you could look to jump into with regards to farming is the idea of doing poultry farming. In essence, kufuga kuku. And in our country, we have different kinds of chicken out there being bred. Whether you're talking about, for example, broiler, whether you're talking about, for example, layers, or even we talk about a mix of both. And looking at the demographics specifically, layers are the majority in the country because of the high demand for eggs. Most of the times, over 70% of chicken out there are layers, and then about 20-something% are broilers. All these are needed in the market, and you could look to jump in either of these spaces for you to be able to make money. And actually, it's quite interesting because depending on the space in which you go to, most likely you could even be able to start making money as soon as 6 weeks after you investing. And of course, when you talk about poultry farming, assuming you already have some space, maybe in your backyard, or even you have a piece of land to which you can put a temporary structure on, then you just having about 50K will be a good amount for you to start this business and be well into making a good profit. What's going to take a huge chunk of your money is getting the initial chicks and also getting the initial money for vaccinations and food for this chicken. To give you an example, for example, layer smash, in case you're talking about layers, and even different kind of food stuff which are essential in assisting chicken out there grow very fast, or even ensure your breed of eggs which you're getting from this particular chicken are of constant quality. That's going to take a good amount of money for you to ensure you get that right. But once you lock in your first harvest and you get it in the market, chances are it's going to keep bankrolling itself. So it's going to be a ripple effect. You can start small, and even by the end of 1 year, you might just even have your business grow 10-fold. That is a very lucrative idea which you could look to jump into, more so in case you have some space on which you can build a temporary structure for you to start figuring their kuku. And then the second business idea which you could look to jump into in farming is the idea of growing vegetables. This idea also assumes you have a piece of land somewhere. So you can look to utilize that particular piece of land, most in case also have a good water source around there for you to be able to grow vegetables. And by the way, vegetables in Kenya is an evergreen opportunity because Kenyans out there are constantly consuming vegetables. When you talk about, for example, even consuming ugali na mboga, whatever delicacy out there with vegetables, they are always on high demand. Talk about, for example, sukuma wiki, talk about spinach, you name it. These are perpetually in high demand. Talking about, for example, spinach, dania, these are the kind of vegetables which you can go and actually gain a harvest within 40-something days. So don't hesitate, jump into these, and by the way, you're gonna just be well into good business. And for this, also need to be cautious. Get good seeds out there. For example, go to Kenya Seeds or whichever other accredited place. Get awesome seeds there and plant. And you might just be well in the business of growing vegetables and even supplying in a large scale, right? And then the third business idea which you look to jump into the space of farming is you doing bee farming. Yes, guys, most in case you have a huge tract of land somewhere where it's kind of secluded, quiet, not much going on there, why not look to jump into bee farming? And by this is exciting because the kind of farming which doesn't really require for you to be there on a full-time basis. You know guys what? Nyuki zinajichunga zenyewe. In case someone tries to go there, for example, to steal, be sure you can guess what the repercussions are gonna be. So in case you have a huge chunk of land somewhere out there, don't hesitate. Jump into beekeeping and you're gonna be well into good business. And for this also, you're just having someone about 50K to about 100K is gonna be a good start, because what's gonna take a huge chunk of your money is actually getting the initial apiary and also the beehives. In Kenya, for example, beehives are gonna cost you somewhere between 3K to about 7K, depending on the kind of beehive. But the most common, which are the best in the market, are actually the long stroke ones. Once you get these, get a couple of them and then build an apiary, you're gonna be well into starting bee farming. And you can start small, and then over time you can grow even to be a major supplier in the region which you live in. Of course, this also calls for dedication and also for you to time pretty well, more so for you to harvest honey at the right time. And honey is an evergreen commodity in Kenya because the demand is perpetually high and high, right? And then guys, the fourth basic idea around farming, which by the way is an awesome idea because you don't really have to have a piece of land, is the idea around doing renting of tractor on a pooling basis. Farmers out there are eagerly looking for options with regards to how they can plow their land, okay? And most of the times, you find them, for example, moving individually to and seek means of plowing the lands. For example, out there, for example, they're using oxes, some who can afford are using tractors and so forth. Why not be the coordinator in this space? Hire a tractor, for example, for multiple days, even can be a week, and also on the other end, coordinate the farmers, whereby you can even have an agreement with them whereby they're paying you an hourly rate, and be sure to utilize this to the maximum, and actually you can be able to make good amount of money. Because of this, assuming for example hard tractor for even 1 week, yes, you're gonna pay a good amount of money upfront, but even with this, you're gonna be able even to recover your money more than 3 times. Because once you consolidate the demand side, be sure everything's gonna go on smoothly, because it's gonna be very clear this tractor is spending this time in this particular farm, onto the next farm, onto another farm, and so forth. And with that, you're gonna be able to make good amount of money. Of course, this concept hasn't really been maximized in Kenya. Of course, we've seen some companies out there, for example, Hello Tractor, come in with the Uber concept in the farming space, most of our tractors, but this concept going to the rural areas, guys, hasn't been utilized to the maximum. Look into it and possibly could be able to be in a very big business, which also you can be able to have clients who are going to be looking for you day in, day out. And then the fifth and last idea I want to discuss around farming, and also for these guys, you don't really need to own any piece of land, is the idea of you distributing fertilizer. We all know and we understand farmers out there are constantly looking for fertilizers for them to be able to enhance their outcome from their farming activities they are doing. And for Kenya specifically, the most typical, the most common types of fertilizers in the country are, for example, DAP, CAN, and urea. Most of guys, the DAP is in high demand in the country because it has those nutrients in the soil which are very significant. For example, nitrogen, ammonia, and also phosphates in the soil, which are very fundamental in assisting different crops out there to grow very well and ensure also the soil has the right pH balance. This is in high demand by farmers out there. And of course, most farmers out there go to buy, for example, in the nearby agrovet, you name it. Why not specialize, for example, in supplying DAP in a given region? Of course, you're going to start with 1, 2, 3 farmers, but over time, you're going to be able to expand. And also fertilizers out there, depending on the package, also the type of fertilizer, is going to cost you somewhere between 3K 500 to about 7K, depending on the type and also the package. So you having just about 50K is going to be a good start for you to jump into this space and actually be an endpoint distributor of fertilizer to a given segment of farmers. And for this also, be sure you can easily be able to make even a profit of 40% in case you get good numbers on the ground. What do you all think about these ideas?